Pressing start. Okay, we're live.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in. And those of you that were joining us in our previous session, it's kind of a marathon. We're going to kind of get through another hour of more stuff, but I assure you the stuff is going to be helpful and beneficial. And I really think that, well, I hope you like it, but I don't know if you're going to love it like I do. But yeah, anyways, those of you that weren't here in the previous session by any chance, I know that this has been given to more than just the orientation students. Some of our old students that have been here before might be attending as well. So those of you that don't know who I am or what's going on, my name is Mark Gonzalez, and I'm the Academic Integrity Officer of the college. So I deal with, student submissions and making sure that the content you upload is original, requires like a lot of hard work on your end, but it is representative of your knowledge and your understanding. So with all of that said, one important thing to make sure that the content that you always upload to receive a grade is honest original work is to document things correctly. So specifically, we are talking about APA in this case. So our purpose for this little hour session that we have here is to go over the important elements of APA documentation, making sure that you know the basics of it. You will get more information throughout your semesters, but this will be a good place to start. And how are we going to start with that? I'm going to provide you with the document that your teachers go to for help, and that you will have access to as your course semester begins as well, which is the APA documentation guide. We're going to go through it. We won't have any PowerPoint slides because the idea is everything you need is in here. So if you have a question, this is like your best APA dictionary to use, and I encourage you to keep a copy of it, read it before bed, when you wake up, whatever you like, and whenever you have a chance, take a peek at it so that you have good knowledge of this information. Okay, so one thing I do want to mention as we are going through the session, I am more than happy to review questions that you might have. So there is a Q&A section in Microsoft Teams. And if you do have a question that pops up about anything I've said for any reason, please put it into the Q&A section, and then I'll address them perhaps maybe at the end. But if it's quick to address, maybe I can address it right away. OK, so, I encourage any questions you have. I'd be more than happy to answer them. OK, so those of you that don't know anything about APA, this is your first instance of the term APA. You have no idea what it even means. It stands for the American Psychological Association, and that's the group that made APA. So they decided, and many people decide this, but they're like, hey, we want a nice format. Every document you submit, a nice format for submitting the document. So it looks good and it is trying to be transparent. So what does transparent mean when I'm talking about transparent? It's really a case of, okay, I have written this. I made this document, but I got help. Where did you get the help from? Please tell us. And there's a way and a guideline that we can set on how to tell us, so that if we're looking for those other sources of information, we can jump right to your document to the right spot and know exactly how to find them. So that's what APA documentation is trying to do, allowing you to use outside sources and doing it in an academically honest way. The way I can describe it, very, very simply, is honest plagiarism. In the sense that, plagiarism is when you take work from someone and you don't tell us where it came from, and that could get you into trouble. That could get you into a private meeting with me, and those aren't always pleasant. And this will help you avoid that. This will help you put that content in the correct way. And if you can't do it this way, you can't do it really anyway. That's how you should really keep that in mind. Okay, so when we're looking at APA, there are many formats of it. Perhaps those of you that have been in previous colleges and other education colleges or universities or wherever you've been before, perhaps you've done APA stuff. I'm not sure when you did it, but if you had done it before, let's say 2019, give or take, it might have been a different process because the rules tend to change sometimes. In fact, I think it was like 10 years before was the last change. So this might be another 10 years before the next change, but there have been changes. So if you are not familiar with the most recent edition, which is from 2019, this document says it's from 2020. So if you're not up to date with the documentation guide, there might be some new content for you to learn today as well. Okay, so this guide, and I saw a question about the document. No worries, you will have many opportunities to get access to this document. On your Moodle pages, many of your courses will have this document available for download, on day one. If you're checking your Moodle page now, oftentimes at the very top where your missed test and assignments policies are and where your course outlines are, they're going to drop the APA guide up there as well. Take a look. If it's there, great, fantastic. If it's not there and you need access to it, I'm more than happy to, deliver a copy to you. I'll put my email address, at the end of the presentation if you want to contact me for any reason, just to say hi or what's up or how's it going or can I have a guide, please? Just send it my way. Okay, so we're going to go through important elements of the APA guide, the stuff that I feel that you need to see firsthand, and that can help you make your own documents later on. So there are many, many, many things to cover in this guide. We can't cover all of them, but we will cover and highlight some of the bigger parts and then answer any questions you might have as well. Okay, so you're going to see once you get this document, you're going to see that it has many sections. It has a section on plagiarism, has a section on paraphrasing, has a section on documentation, many, many different places to go. We are going to jump all the way down to a sample paper because I think a sample paper will really show you what the expectations are for your document. Because I think a lot of students are okay with writing, but it's a question of how should you format your writing. And if you format it this way, you won't have many problems down the road. Okay, so to do that, we're going to jump down to page 49 of this PDF, which is going to be the sample APA paper. So I've memorized all these pages because I jump here all the time. But here is the start. Here's what a page looks like. Okay, now before we get there, I just want to let you know that there are certain guidelines to format your research paper. Okay, when you're formatting a research paper, you want to make sure that you follow these guidelines, and a lot of people miss some of these things because of, you just don't know, perhaps in many cases. Other times you think you know one way, probably the old APA, and you transfer this way and it might be different. So this is APA 7th edition. Everything I'm going to tell you is about APA 7th edition, which is the most recent edition of APA. Okay, and you need to have your margins. And if you're not sure what margins are, it's that empty white space in between the page. So like this space here and the space here, and that's at the top as well. This should be the same size. We're talking about 1 inch, and we are in Canada, so sometimes we use inches, sometimes we use centimeters. I know the whole world other than the United States uses centimeters, so 2.54 centimeters. This is the normal setting on Microsoft Word. You don't have to really fiddle with this, so if you don't touch it ever, you will be okay. But if you make your margins smaller and smaller and you fit more words on the page, that's actually a problem. It's not a good thing, it's actually a bad thing. So you have to work within the confines of the margins. The next thing is font, right? Font is important too. A lot of people don't even really care much about these things, but they're actually important. Your font matters. So when you're choosing a font, there are many fonts that you can choose for APA. But if you want to keep your life simple, you don't want a lot of complication, go for one specific font. And that specific font is going to be Times New Roman. Okay, so Times New Roman is the best choice of font for APA. And you're going to choose size 12. Okay, so when you have your font selection, there are many opportunities for you to choose from, but sometimes the font size will be different. Might be 11, might be 12. Cut out the middleman, just forget that difficult stuff and just focus on Times New Roman. That's the good one, size 12, and you're good to go. There are others, but I feel like that would make your life a bit easier. Okay. The entire document is going to be double spaced. You're going to see that momentarily. You're going to have things like a title, for the entire report. You're going to have subheadings. You're going to have cover pages. You're going to have references. You're going to have many different sections, but we're going to go through each of those individually. Okay, and so I think without further ado, just to keep things on the right pace, let me show you what a regular APA research paper looks like, okay? And the regular research paper will begin with a cover page. This is what a cover page looks like. Let me just zoom out a bit. I know it's very small, but it's okay if you can't read it for now. But this is the whole page, right? Like what you can see here is the whole page. The gray part is the sample. And so your cover page is not fancy. I think a very common thing that students will love to do is they want to put their own personal spin on their presentation. They want to make it look good. So they open up Microsoft Word, they check the templates. The templates are like, wow, this one has a rainbow on it. So you pick the rainbow and you slap a rainbow on there. And although it looks great, it looks fantastic, it doesn't look APA, right? It doesn't look like APA. APA is boring. I mean, let's be honest, it's not the coolest thing you've ever seen. It's a blank page. It is not gray, it's white, but it's a blank page with just a few important pieces of information on it. So you'll notice at the top corner here, you have a page number, right? So the page number always goes in the top and to the my left and right. On the top right side of your page is the page number. Do not put the page number in the bottom center. Do not put the page number on the top and to the left. Those would be wrong. Your only location for the page number is going to be top and to the right. Okay, you can start all of your pages like this. Each of them will have the same page number order. You know, you start a cover page all the way to the end, starting with number 1. Okay, next you're going to notice a few things in the center of the page. Now, this is literally the center of the page. Center, 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 completely, basically center. All of the content that tells us kind of like a home address, you know, this is what you put on the cover page. The first thing you put is your title. What is the title of the entire essay? That is going to be bold font, and it's going to be the regular Times New Roman size 12. You'll notice that everything that we see today for all of the fonts is always going to be size 12. You never want to make it bigger or smaller. You're always keeping the same font size the whole way through. The only difference, the only thing you can do for font is to change the bold or italic or regular, but you're never really increasing or decreasing the size of the font. Okay, so Women in Leadership and Paramedicine, that's your title. Wow, that's a great title. Fantastic. I can't wait to read this this report. And then below that, you have more content. So the content that you have below that is your student name goes first. Okay, so student name, you have that at the very top there. Sometimes you have a group of students, you could put your whole student name there. All the students who've contributed goes at the top there. Next, you have the department that the whole program is in. Like what program are you in, right? Like what is your department there? This one is for the communications department, which I also head as well. And then you have COM 2033, that's your course code, and the course name goes below that. Then you have the teacher name. So Elena is the instructor's name here. Some students flip that by accident. They put teacher name and then their name. You know, make sure the top one is your name and then the teacher name goes below. And then the last thing is the date. And that's it. I mean, that's all you want to do. That's the entire amount of content that goes onto a cover page. Now, again, if you need to review this, no worries. You get a copy of this APA guide, and this APA guide will contain the sample paper for your perusal. Completely free. We don't charge for it, except for tuition. You have to pay tuition. But other than that, the document is completely free for you to use. Okay, so that's your first major section. That's your cover page. Very plain, very basic. Everyone's cover page should look basically the same. The title might be different, the student name will be different, but everything else will be very, very similar across all your fellow classmates. Okay, so let's move on. Let's keep on going. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat box. Not the chat box, but the Q&A box as well. Next, we're going to go to page 2. Page 2 is the summary. Now, if you're wondering what a summary is, or the purpose perhaps of a summary, it's to give you a basic overview of the entire report. Now, this is sometimes good, sometimes useless, in the sense that, think of it like this. If you have a 10-page paper or a 20-page paper, yeah, I probably want a summary because that's a lot to read. After 20 pages for one group, and I have like 10 groups, that my eyes will just bleed, you know, as a teacher. So a summary would be very helpful. It helps you to get a good sense of the overview of the document, and it's good to put at the very beginning before you start to write. Now, if your document isn't 20 pages, if your document is like 4 pages long, I mean, that's not a big deal. You don't really need a summary in that case. And I think for the majority of the documents you're going to be creating in term 1 especially, you're going to find that your documents will not extend for a very long, you know, portion of writing, you know. So take a look, for example, at the summary on page 2 here. Look at it, very, very nice. I'm just going to do one of these. I'm just going to give it a big X. Forget it, right? Only put a summary in if your instructor requests it for you in your assignments. But if they don't request a summary, then you can leave the summary out, like no big deal, okay? Spacing between the heading and the name. Spacing between the heading and the name. Oh, okay. I just saw like a flurry of questions just pop up. So if we're going back to the cover page, and I'll just answer those questions for you about the spacing there. So the entire document is double spaced, right? This comes up on this page right here. You want to double space the entire paper, no extra lines between paragraphs. I'll show you what that means. But there is a gap. There is one line of space between women in leadership and paramedicine, and that's it, just one line of skip line. The rest of it is just normal double space. Now, if you're not sure what double space means, there's a setting in Microsoft Word to do double spacing. If we have time at the end of this session, I'll show you what that is and where to find that kind of formatting content, time permitted, if we do. But one line of space between title and name, okay? And let's see. Why is 43 written at the bottom? Great question. Well, notice how the page is gray, right? You know, the page is gray because it's the sample. It's trying to identify the piece of the document that's a sample. The white page is the actual APA booklet that you're holding, right? The APA booklet contains the sample, so you want to know the difference. Page 43 is the page on the APA documentation guide that we're reading. Page number 1 at the top is the APA formatted document. One is a book, one is the APA sample paper. I hope that clarifies why the 43 is on the bottom of the page. Is it an executive summary? In many cases it is. That's where an executive summary will be located. So again, if your instructor asks you for an executive summary, then by all means put an executive summary. But if you don't have any guidance on summary or no summary, leave it out. And maybe perhaps ask your instructor if you need to put a summary. And in many cases, they will probably say, no, it's okay. Thanks, but no thanks. You know, they'll tell you that. Let's see, how many spaces to get to the center of the page? Good question. Well, I think to get to the center of the page, it's important to put all of the content in first. Sometimes your title might extend beyond the first line. It might have 2 lines of content, perhaps. So all you have to do is, I think, hit approximately, I think it's 10. I think the spacing is 10 down, but you can always kind of balance it out. The idea is that you don't leave it too high up. You're not going to have an instructor that cares too much, but what I can say is if you have it too high up on the page, it's very easy to identify. If you bring it down a few lines, at least like 5 to 10, your instructor is not going to penalize you for missing that part. APA is great to follow, and there are little nitpicking things to follow, but I think the more important thing is the references and the researching, not so much how high or how low your title is. They're not going to flip out. They're not going to. I think your instructors are pretty okay with that, and I think they have better things to do than to review, you know, measure how low the title is, right? But good question, still good question. But just, you know, we'll get to more important elements to be concerned about in just a moment. Okay, so let's move down. Is the page number return at the top or generate at the top? Is page number return at the top or generated at the top? It can be generated. So there is a setting to generate a page number, and you can generate that in Microsoft Word. If you do that on page number 1, you're totally fine and you're good to go. You don't have to actually just, you know, enter it in every single time, right? You can always just generate that, no problem. Okay, great, good. Let's proceed. So we did the cover page, we skipped the summary. Let's take a look at an actual page of writing and what you can do with an actual page of writing. This is a regular page in an APA document. There is an image here. Okay, that's cool. Let's go to a page with no writing on it. Then maybe that would be great too. This one has no writing on it. And you'll notice that there is some bold writing at the top right here. There is also some bold writing at the top right here. So let's just talk for a moment about that bold writing, because that bold writing is kind of important. Women in leadership in paramedicine. Perhaps you've heard that before. Maybe I spoke that a few moments ago, and that was also on the cover page. So this is a heading, and headings are very important to your document. When you're making any APA guide, headings are great. They help you identify what sections you're discussing, its organization. You know, it's very, very helpful to have them in there. So women in leadership in paramedicine is the very, very first heading you're going to put. It is center aligned. Okay, so it's put into the center of the line, and it is exactly the same thing as the cover page. Your first heading that you write for your APA report is going to match the title of the actual report. Okay, that's why it's good not to call it business report number 1. You know, like that's kind of boring. Give it an interesting title, make sure it looks cool and is clever or something that reflects what the content is about. Okay, first one there, check. But then you can have other headings. If you want to talk about something other than women in leadership and paramedicine, you want to talk about, I don't know, perhaps implicit bias, you can make another heading. And that goes in the same format as the last one. Okay, and there are many different levels of headings. If we have time, I'll cover them. But for now, here are some examples of headings to put if you have different topics you want to discuss inside of your research report. Okay, so that's just a heading there. You had an image before. You have more paragraphs here. Now the paragraphs, I want to show you something in the paragraphs specifically. The paragraphs, look at this, I'm just going to draw around here. Cool. And I'm going to draw on the other side as well. Okay, one line straight, the other line not straight. So this is not the alignment that you might be comfortable with in writing your documents. In many cases, a lot of students, they want to have their documents straight, like a box, right? Like straight down. That's called justified, like justified alignment. We don't want justified alignment for APA. For APA, we want the other kind, which is left aligned. So left aligned will make your document look different than other documents that are justified. And this is a better choice because of the stuff that you see up here, right? When you think of this box or images that you include, left align allows you to fit content in better if you're putting an image in. If you have an image to include in your report, and sometimes you will, this is the best choice. So don't use justified. There is never a reason to use justified for APA, and you want to use left align for your paragraphs, center align for your headings. Okay, and that's just the basics. That's just the basics. I'm going to take a moment because I've been talking for a lot. I'm going to look at your questions, see if there are any questions. Okay. Gray color, not mandatory. You're right. It's not mandatory. The gray is just here so that you can identify what's a sample and what is practice, what is, for you to look at. The white box, you're not going to make that on your own thing. Everything will be white. The margins will be, 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters, and that's really about it. For group paperwork, how do we write the names in each member? Is it one line each member? Great question. You can put all of the names on one line. Right, so all your group members go on the same line, and then if there's spillover, if there's extra, they just fall to the next line, right? So that's how you would handle group names if there are multiple group names. Can we get this document for reference? Great question. So great that we've heard it a couple of times so far today, but the answer is yes. We will be more than happy to provide this for you free of charge, and we are losing so much money on it because it's such a valuable document. But most of your courses that have APA documentation in them, where you will need to use APA, they put it at the top of their Moodle page. So if you see it on your Moodle page as APA style guide or APA documentation guide, that's the same file that we're looking at here. If you don't have it, you can always email me and I can always provide it for you as well individually, right? So however you prefer to get it, we will do our best to get you this document because it is so important for you to do well in your classes. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it so far. I hope that's so far so good. Did I miss any questions? Okay, how is the image reference? Great question. We're getting to references in just a moment, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm actually going to jump down a bit to the final element of your APA guide, which is references. Then we're going to come back to how to put references into the document. Okay, so I've shown you the cover page. That's one major section you need. I've shown you what the body of the document looks like, which is all the writing and all the paragraphs, all your main ideas. That's where they go. Let's take a look at the last part, which is the references page. So let's scroll down, all the way down. What a great paper. Wow, very interesting. Oh my God. Oh, great. Financial bias. Wow, I can't wait to read this in my spare time. Moving on to the bottom. This is your last page. Let me zoom out so you can see the whole thing. Okay, this is what the entire page looks like. And this is a references page. So references refers to all of the stuff that helped you make your document. Where did you get your ideas? Where did you get some of the research you were talking about in your document? Because I want to go look at them. I'm your teacher. I want to go find those things. I'm very curious. I want to learn all about financial bias. Where are your sources? And I want to check them out. See, what kind of cool stuff is going on in the financial bias world. Okay. Yeah, you can do that, and you can put them in here. So this is one place out of two places they need to be. Okay, so coming back to your question about how the image is referenced, this page is a references page. There is a format to follow. You'll notice that it doesn't look like the other sections. The indent, which is, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but the indent looks like this. Your writing is like a reversed paragraph. The first line starts at the far end. The next lines have a bit of a gap or space forward, and that's when you start to write your content. So this is something to do for references. This is called a hanging indent. And hanging indents are something that you could use in Microsoft Word. It's something that you can automate. So again, if we have time today, I'll try to show that to you. If not, I believe if you're taking a comm class, it's something that they will show you there as well. So, a lot of the content that I've been talking about today, you will see plenty of if you have a comm course in your semester. Okay, so no worries there if we miss something today. It's going to be covered later. But yeah, so this is how a references page looks like. It lists all of your content in alphabetical order. Notice it's still left justified. It is not, simply like boxy. It's just like left aligned, not justified, left aligned. Everything is there. All the references that you needed right there for you. Okay, and this is one of two places to put the references, and we're going to come back to the references in just a moment, but these are all the main parts you need. Okay, so if you're trying to submit an APA document, remember that you require the cover page, the body, and the references. 1, 2, and 3 big pieces. If you miss a summary, maybe you don't need it. You can check with your instructor if you need it. But those are the 3 major elements you need. Okay, whenever you're submitting a document in APA format, that's the way to go. All right, so with that being said, I want to come back to look at the paragraphs in the body section to show you a little bit about references, how to use content properly in your document. So let's scroll up a bit. Here we go. Let's just pick, we were on implicit bias before. So that's one place to look. But before we go there, I wanted to answer the question about images. Okay, so here is an image. This image is about women in Canadian paramedicine. You'll notice that there is a little box below the image. This box says Figure 1, Women in Canadian Paramedicine, Bacon and McIsaac Bacon, which is 2019. Okay, that's the year. There's a format to follow here. And this little box with the contents inside is what we call an in-text citation, right? Parenthetical reference is another name for it. So this is a citation, which is kind of like a bookmark. Think of it like a bookmark that you put into your writing that's present in other places. You'll notice another citation up here, Ministry of Labor. Okay, here's another bookmark. That tells me that the content written before the parentheses is content that isn't coming from my mind, it's coming from someone else's mind. Okay, this is very, very trustworthy type of writing because it tells me exactly where the content is coming from. It tells me how to find that content. It's really, really helpful. Okay, and you need to put this as well as the references page. If you put just the references, then I don't know where you were citing the sources. If you just put the sources, I can't go and find anything based on Ministry of Labor 2015. I'm sure Ministry of Labor is very big and they have done a lot in 2015. So what are you pointing to in particular? So if you decide to go down to the references page and come all the way down to the bottom here, you will find, you will find the Ministry of Labor right here, like as an example, right? Here is your Ministry of Labor reference. This has all the information I need to go and find it and read it myself. So the bookmark tells me where the content, you're paraphrasing the content that you took goes in your report. That tells me this is not your idea, but you're using it to help your ideas. And then later on, if I want to go find that myself and read that idea, I can locate it with that link right here. The URL is here for me. The name of the document is here for me. The date, the author, all that stuff is present. And it's formatted in a very particular way. And it's here for me or for your instructor to review. Okay, this is trustworthy writing. Both of these things are required, not just one, not just the other. You need both. Okay, so please, please, please remember to do that. Okay, and let me just pause for some questions. Q&A. How we doing? And by the way, as far as images and references go, this one, Vacant and McIsaac Vacant, if you remember, this is the link to the picture. So the image is referenced in a little box below the picture. It has the citation. And then you come back to your references page, and then you put it here as well, right? So it goes in the same way that you would put other content. It's referenced in very, very similar ways, okay? So yeah, that's basically how that works. Now, as for okay, so if it's blank on Moodle, no worries. Again, I can always provide it for you. Let me know, and I'll see if I can. Maybe I can drop it on Moodle for everyone to download. Perhaps maybe there's a place we could do that. If not, I could always email it to you. In the past, I've emailed students this document for access. Okay, but yeah, I really want to make sure you can get that. So that is a priority of mine, and I will do my best, absolute best, to get you this document as soon as I can. Okay. So the hanging indent, how many spaces for the tabs? Ooh, kind of complicated, kind of complicated. If you do hanging indents manually, you're gonna have a bad time, right? There is a method in Microsoft Word, and I'll try to show that for you right before we wrap up today, how to do a hanging indent. But it's a formatting tool you can use in Microsoft Word. So when you're hitting enter and then tab, it's gonna mess you up a bit. There's a better way. There's an easier and better way to do it. I didn't learn this until I was a teacher, and I'd been teaching for years. And then when it happened, my mind just blew. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. It changed my life for the better. I stopped all my negative behavior, and I became a better person as a result of that. But anyways, coming back to the citation stuff, right? Citations, and before we get to the hanging indents. Citations are important because they're transparent, like I mentioned. And there are many ways to do different citations because there are many things that you can cite. You can cite a book. You can cite a movie. You can cite your professor's PowerPoint slides. Like, there are ways to do different types of content. There's good reference content and there is not so good reference content. The APA guide will show you how to do everything no matter what, whether it's good or not. Sometimes a tweet might be a possible piece of research you want to reference. So how do you do that? Well, don't worry. You know, we've looked at the APA guide so far today with the sample paper, but I just want to jump backwards a bit to one of the other sections that we have, which is about referencing, because referencing is very intricate. It's very detailed, conscious, and there are many different things to reference and a few different formats to follow. So how do you do that? Well, you jump to the section in this book about referencing and citations. So how do you find that? Well, no worries. You know, let's just scroll up a bit if I can, if my computer is cooperating with me. Okay, we're back up here, okay, to the table of contents. We have many sections. We have a section on parenthetical references, which is chapter 8. We also have a section on regular references here. So citations are one section and references are another section. But notice how big the references section is. Look how big that is. That's page 18, it begins, and it goes all the way down to page 30. Those are all different examples of different types of content you can reference. So unfortunately, we don't have the time, and maybe you have that time, but I don't have that kind of time to sit here and just kind of, you know, read that out to you, because if you don't pass out, I will. And so what I can direct you to is this document when you have a chance, and use it like a dictionary. Like I said, like I keep saying, I want to reference a journal published in a physical book. All I have to do is find those things. Article in a journal might be the one I'm looking for. Okay, article in a newspaper might be the one I'm looking for. It depends, but you can find that content here in this section, and that's how you can use this book. Okay, refer to it when you need it. When you are not sure about how to do something in APA, jump there. Because I'll tell you one thing: if you ask your instructor a question about APA, which you are more than welcome to do, and they're very, very happy to do that for you, because they love it when you submit content in the proper way, and they don't have to kind of, you know, have missing citations or missing references. So if you're doing it that way and you ask them the question, I have a problem about citations, they'll be like, okay, good. And they might have no idea how to answer your question. They'll be like, good, true, okay, very interesting. Excuse me 1 second, and then they kind of leave. They're going to check this book. They're going to look at this document and see if they can find your answer here, because this is what they use. Everybody will be using this document. So you can cut that middleman out, but also you can go to them for support. I encourage you to do so. But I'm just letting you know that if you're in a bind, this is going to be a very, very, very useful source for you to find many of your answers already. Okay, and perhaps there's something here that you don't understand. You can always go to your instructor and clarify that with them too. Okay, so review it, take a look at it. I will jump down there just to show you what some of these sections look like. And if my memory served me right, page 24 is references. Haha, I did it. Okay, cool. I just jumped right there. So this tells you how to format the references page, okay, by hand if you want to do it manually. This is the way to do it. It tells you some of the guidelines for the author names. If you have an author name, if you have an organization, if you have no author, well, there are different rules to follow. Okay, so you can review this section for those rules, although we are pressed for time and I want to show you some other things, so I didn't want to go through all of it together, but you can do things like put ND for no date. Published by a very reputable, very trustworthy source. Everyone knows this company. It's just that they didn't put a date on it. Well, you can still use it, right? You can still use it. It's still useful. If you trust the author, if you trust the date of publication, it's very up-to-date, current content, then, by all means, use it. There are some things where you don't know the author, you don't know the date. Well, then should you use the document? Probably not. Wikipedia is a very good example of this. A lot of people use Wikipedia. I think Wikipedia is great, to be honest with you. It's a good starting point for research. I don't want to discourage any source of good, valuable content. But please keep in mind that I could go onto Wikipedia today and write that a giraffe has 2 different heads, one for looking and one for eating. And I'll type that into Wikipedia, and that will stay on Wikipedia for a period of time before someone catches it and deletes it. But the idea is anyone can write anything about anything. And can you trust that kind of content? Maybe not. But maybe you can trust the references that you find in Wikipedia, and they can take to other places to continue your research. So it's a good starting point, but it's not a good reference for academic papers. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that answers Meg's question from the previous session at with the Kahoot question about Wikipedia. Not so great for a main source. Okay, so if you have reference questions or concerns, come down here, use it like a dictionary, and then find the formatting. This has general patterns, right? What to do in general for your formatting for a book, formatting for a journal, formatting for online content, general format rules. Notice the commas, notice the periods. All that stuff is very, very, very particular, very specific. And unfortunately, if you're doing it by hand, this could cause some concerns. So always come back here as a reference. Okay, so I've said a lot of words. I have to breathe. I forgot to do that recently. So let me just check your questioning if you have any questions in the Q&A section. Okay, let's see what we got. Only the cited references come here. Now, correct. Now, if you cite it, if you have it cited in your document, you must put it in the references. And if you don't cite it, then you don't reference it because you're not using the content in the way that you should. Every citation requires a reference. Every reference requires a citation. They must both be there at all times. Okay. Don't just leave them out. Always put them in. Okay. Now, let's see, can I yeah, I can totally explain the references page again. So let's say that you're researching chocolate because my brain doesn't work at 11:45 in the morning, so I don't have a better example, but I'm doing a research paper on chocolate, okay? I am researching the different companies and what kind of chocolate they make and what year they made the chocolate, okay? If I have to Google that content, I don't know what year, and you don't know what year the first chocolate bar was invented, and I have to go find that on Google. That's a kind of reference that I need to include. So when I find out that the year was, I don't know, 1902, when the first chocolate bar was created, and I found that on Google, I must identify where that information came from, because I didn't just invent that from my brain. So the reference is there in case your teacher wants to double check that 1902 is correct. In case that they want to make sure that what you saw is what the person actually said. And this also protects you from any accusation of plagiarism because you're telling me exactly where the content came from. I'm being honest. That's where it is. I didn't make it up. It's true, I swear. There it is. There's proof. Okay, so the reference page is a list of all of those types of pieces of information that you've included in your document that didn't come from your brain, but are still important for your writing. So you must identify those in one page, or not one page, but as in one section. It could be 2 pages, could be 3 pages, depends on how many references you have. But you must also identify which paragraph you put that information. So that's where the citation comes in. And that's how they're a pair, they work together. Okay. So let's see, where do we need to mention the reference? Okay, citations in the paragraphs as you're writing, mixed in, right? References at the end. Very last part of your report is the references page. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question there. Should we add an index page? Well, an index page is sometimes required, but at your level and at your type of content that you're writing, in many cases, the answer is going to be no. And that's something that an instructor will ask of you specifically, and they'll show you specifically how to make an index page. Now, in this APA guide, it's not really covered because we don't really cover it in many of our courses here. So don't worry too much about it for now. If you hear it again in your courses, be sure to communicate with your instructor and they'll be able to provide you with some explanation there, okay? Additional explanation if needed for an index page, okay? Does the image reference also come under the reference section? Yes, it does. You must put, if it's a movie, if it's a audio, recording or something, anything that is talked about coming from another place is in the citation of the paragraphs and the reference page at the end. Everything is. Absolutely. Yeah. If it's not from you, it must be referenced. Okay. Let's see. When do we put text in italics? Oh, interesting. Yeah. So some of them, and I think we're on the perfect page for that right now, because if we're looking at this page right here, you'll notice some pages, some parts are italic. And in many cases, the title of the magazine, the title of the book, those are often the italics items. So for a book, the title of work is in italics. Everything else is not. For the journal, the periodical name and the volume is italics, but the article name is not. So if you are not sure about which ones are italics, which ones aren't, again, use this like a dictionary and jump over here and you can double check, right? You can double check which one, title of periodical, if it is the title of the content, title or content of the post up to 20 words. That's for online media. So it's different for each kind of thing. And this will hopefully clarify that for you as you review the document when it comes time for using this kind of reference. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. And the basic answer is check the book, but honestly, it's right here for you too. Okay, so let's see what else we have. Okay, let's see. Background of the document. Oh, no. Okay, so just to clear the gray thing, because I think it's come up before. The page is white. It is gray on the APA guide to help identify what pages are samples. And that's the only reason it's gray. In your report, it's going to be white. Every document you submit, black and white. That's it. Never, ever, 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 ever use color in your APA guides when you're writing text. The only text that should be colored might be the blue for the URL of a reference. But when you're putting your body paragraphs together, when you're putting your cover pages together, no color, black and white. Okay, so you want to make sure that everything stays the same. White page, black font, that's it. In the olden days when you're writing on paper, there were different pen colors, but you don't have to worry about that too much. But yeah, please be careful with your APA referencing and be careful with the coloring. Make sure it's black and white and that's it. Okay, no gray, no rainbow, no nothing, right? Let's see. Reference is mandatory in all APA documents. Absolument, oui. That is to be, yeah, absolutely yes, right? Definitely put references, because remember, I'm the academic integrity officer. So I'm telling you all this today, like on your first week of time at the college. And if it's not there, we're going to have a private meeting, probably because your instructor will report you for an academic integrity, report. I don't want to say it in a negative way, but it becomes academically dishonest when you don't have that content properly referenced. Because if we don't know where it came from, we believe you did it, And if you didn't invent chocolate in 1902, and you don't tell me where that content came from, I believe you invented that statement, but it's not true, is it? Like, you didn't invent that. You didn't make that up yourself. So you want the references to protect yourself from any kind of instance where we are not sure where the content came from, and we can't give you a grade because of that. So please be careful of what kind of content you submit, and this referencing thing will protect you in most cases from any kind of academic dishonesty. Okay, let's see. Which format do you have to follow to write a reference? So you're following the APA guidelines right here, and on this page. Like the guidelines are here on this page, chapter 9 of your APA style guide, which is page 18, PDF page 24, and it shows you the format. All the format pieces right here for you so that you know exactly what to do. Let's see. I hope that answers your question, but yeah, your answer to the formatting and how you follow it, APA guides. There are other APA guides on the internet too if you want to use them, but this one will have basically everything you need. All your questions should be answered here in terms of formatting, okay? Mendeley, I'm not sure what that means. Maybe if you want to add more information in the Q&A about that, please let me know. Let's see. If a student is using from book, is it significant to use bookish materials so as it is? Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I'm reading it to myself. I understood it better when I didn't say it out loud. But the question in the Q&A was basically, if you're taking content from a book, and that content is going to help your arguments, I believe this is what you're saying. Should you modify that into your own words, or should you directly pull it from the book and put it into your document? The answer is yes. But to be more specific, the answer is in different cases, yes. And if you're not sure about that, it covers two specific types of inclusion. One of them is quotations, which is a direct quote, which is taking the exact same words the person used in the writing and putting it into your report, which is fine. The other way is to paraphrase. Paraphrasing is the more complicated one. It's the more challenging one. It's the highly recommended one. And the quotations are better used for things that you can't write any better. If there's no other way for somebody to say this phrase or this statement, then you're going to use a quote. But in most of your research, since you're trying to support your own ideas and your own content, you can probably write it in your own way. So paraphrasing is your best option there. Now, in terms of how to do that, again, the APA guide has you covered. Because honestly, there's nothing this book can't do except for, speak and live a life. But other than that, this book does a lot of stuff, right? You've got sections on paraphrasing. How to actually paraphrase is chapter 4. And if you want to quote, that's the previous one. Chapter 3 is borrowing information. How do you want to borrow that content into your document in the right way? So quoting is an option. It has examples for quoting right here, short quotes, block quotes, all that stuff. So, visit here for answers, and you'll see definite examples for doing so. Okay, let's see. I hope that answers your question, but I'm trying to speed through because we're kind of short on time, right? Do we have to include the reference numbers for headings and their breakdowns? Reference numbers for headings and their breakdowns. Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that description. Like, based on the wording, I'm not quite sure what it means, but I'll try to answer something, and I hope that is what you're trying to say. But a heading will contain content inside of it. The content inside of it, the paragraph elements that are coming from other places are referenced, and citation are in there. But the headings themselves, the actual words for the headings, don't require a reference because it's just a title, right? It's just what you want to talk about. When you use the content, that's when you cite it. That's when you reference it. I hope that's what you mean. I hope that was your question, but if you want to clarify that, please let me know. Do we need to submit APA documentation to each subject instructor or a particular topic? So when your instructor wants you to use outside sources to write content, then by default, I encourage you to use APA. if you want to be double sure, extra sure, ask. You know, the default is yes, you want to make sure that you are transparent in your content. If you're allowed to use sources, so your process is this. First question to your instructor, can we use outside sources? Yes or no? If the answer is no, then you have no need for APA because you're not using outside material. If the answer is yes, double check. Should we reference, should we cite according to APA? And the answer is yes, then yeah, proceed. But I think your default should be, okay, I should probably tell people where this came from. Much safer for you if you tell us where it came from, rather than you don't tell us where it came from. And then you say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I couldn't do that. You know, like that's not the best way to do it. Okay, so keep that in mind for your submissions. Ask your instructor. They will be the definitive response in that case. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Is there any rule about bullet points? Yeah, the rule about bullet points is don't use them. If you can avoid them, don't use them. Paragraphs are better than bullet points in almost every instance. If you're having a bullet point, I recommend you convert that into paragraph form because a paragraph is much better writing than bullets. Bullets are separate ideas that you're not even trying to put together, and paragraphs are more cohesive and they blend better. When I was teaching like comm courses and APA stuff, I would always encourage my students, don't put bullet points. It's kind of lazy. Now, I mean that in the nicest way, but there's a better way to write it if you're not using bullet points, using paragraphs instead. Okay. Can online media be added to reference management software? Yeah, I think so. I believe so. I mean, yeah, I think so. I don't, but I don't know for sure because I don't often really use it myself. So I think that Mendeley question, I can't answer. I think you gave me as much information as you needed to give me, but I just don't know the answer myself. I can look it up, and if you want to contact me afterwards, I can always email you a further response or clarification. But I think the answer is yes, until otherwise stated. Okay. Where should we mention the references at the end of the APA document? Yes, and in the in-text citation. 2 places. During your paragraphs, there's a format. It's called in-text citations right here, right? This right here. And as well at the end of the references page. 2 places. Both places, the same thing is referred to. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? Okay, you're getting the document later on. Is there a minimum number of references? It depends on your instructor. I know some examples, you need 3 references. Some need 6. Depends on the class, depends on your instructor. Again, ask your instructor and you'll be okay. Okay, so always double check with your instructor what to do there. And why are there no terms of TOC? Oh, table of contents. So I think it's TOCs is table of contents for tables and images. Again, for student papers, those aren't required unless your instructor requires them. For a student paper, APA formatting, you don't really need them. Right, professional papers maybe, but not really for student papers. Okay, difference between reference and bibliography. Great question. I'm talking so fast. I know it's like 12 o'clock. I'm talking so fast to get through all your questions. Bibliography is for a different format. APA is one format, the one that we're using here. There are other formats like Chicago style, MLA style. That's the one I was thinking of. They call it works cited. It's the same idea, but different formatting. Same idea. All right. So that I hope that clarifies that. Should be the length of your assignment. Different assignments, different length. Check with your instructor what the word count is. They'll always tell you what that is. Right. That way your teacher will be clear on that. Okay. Can pages be used as opposed to Microsoft Word? I discourage you from doing so because pages, when you upload to Turnitin, there are problems. And I don't think Turnitin can use pages, so please don't use pages. I know some people love Macs. I'm not one of them, but please use Microsoft Word or Google Docs if you don't like Microsoft for whatever reason. I'm not one of those people, but yeah, you can use Word or Pages, not Pages. Oh my gosh, don't use Pages. You can use Word or Google Docs to create your documents. OpenOffice is another one, but I think the school provides you with Microsoft 365 anyways, so you should be okay in that regard. I hope I didn't misspeak there, but I think that you'll get it. Author's name should be right in the citation. Okay, so notice how you have questions about APA. Which author's name should be right in the citation? I don't know off the top of my head. What I can tell you is, in general, the person who wrote the most goes first. Sometimes it's alphabetical, sometimes not, depends on how they agree on it. But if there are 3 or more, that is actually discussed right here. 2 or more works by the same author within the same year, multiple authors, 1 work, 2 authors, 3 or more. There's your answer. Like that's where I'm going to go to answer your question. That's a perfect example of it, right? So I don't know exactly off the top of my head because it's hard to remember that, but it's here written down for you. So once you get this document, I hope that it helps you answer that question, right? Everything needs to be paraphrased. Everything should be paraphrased. Okay, now please keep in mind one thing. I think that we are a little bit low on time. This might be the last thing I'll be able to say. The paraphrasing thing. Paraphrasing is good. Paraphrasing is great. But the question is, what is it are you paraphrasing? Like, what kind of content are you actually paraphrasing? Research and content coming from outside sources should not replace the words you want to say. They should support the ideas you want to talk about. Okay. Now, what that means is that the majority of your content cannot just be paraphrased content because you changed it yourself and then you put the citations and the references. It's not enough. You'll need to limit the quantity of reference content and research material and increase the quantity of your own writing and your own words, and then support them with research. Let them back you up. But don't have the majority of your content coming from all the different places. Cite them according to APA and reference them according to APA and think it's okay. It will still show up as similar. It will still be considered academically dishonest because there's not enough of you there. Okay, so try to aim for like 80% or higher should be original content from you. Limit yourself to 20% and under in terms of how much content you can paraphrase inside of a document and how much content you reference in research materials. Okay. The color and yeah, that's what I'll say there. Okay, last thing I can say, I think we're out of time, unfortunately. We need 6 hours for this session, to be honest with you. But what I can say, last thing, because I saw a question about colors and diagrams. Charts, diagrams are following the same in-text citations for images. You can find that here as well. Illustrations, pictures, or charts. There's your answer, right? Jump there, and you'll see an example as well. But colors are okay for your diagrams and charts. Colors are not okay for the words you're writing down in your paragraphs and your cover page and your references, okay? So no color there. Color for your pictures is okay, all right? Now, with that being said, we are out of time, okay? I would love to, chat about this more. My voice is gonna go. I've been talking nonstop for an hour, but I really appreciate you asking all these questions. If you have more questions for me, okay, and I think you probably do, I do want to just give you my email address, right? My email address as well, and I can just try to write that somewhere. I think it was published somewhere else, but where's the best way? Oh, you don't make an announcement. Okay, let me try this. mark.gonzalez@cestarcollege.com. I will field any question you have, course related or content related or school related, not how's the weather, but you can also contact Academic Integrity at, I hope that's spelled that right, cestarcollege.com. I hope you can all see that. It's in the Q&A section of the team session. So I can talk more there. If you have questions that I didn't answer here, please feel free to contact me there. Check your Moodle pages for the APA guide. If they are not there, perhaps I'll see if we can post it somewhere. Or if you want to email me, I can try to email it to you. But I might get a lot of requests for the document, and I'll just get to yours as soon as I can over the course of a few days. But I will get it to you. I promise I'll get you that document as soon as I can. Okay. So with that being said, we're all done for the day. You've made it to the end of the week. Now all you have to do is start your courses and do the actual several semesters of learning. But other than that, no big deal. So thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Those of you that showed up for all these sessions, you are troopers. Great job. If you have any questions during the semester, I will be available, and I'll also be on campus too. So if you want to, have any questions, just drop in and say hi. That's fine. But other than that, thanks for coming. You're free to go now. All the best, and stay safe and have fun. Don't do drugs, and stay in school. Okay, bye. See you later. Take care.